My name is Heather Glenn. I'm a FNTP, which is an easier way of saying functional nutritional therapy practitioner. Basically learned how the body works, how we can use food as medicine and a way to support our body in healing and rebalancing. Um, I'm also a restorative wellness practitioner. I had advanced training in digestive health and food sensitivities, and a certified holistic health coach. So today we're going to talk about supporting your body and your hormones at 40 and beyond. So our goals for today are to understand the 6 nutritional foundations of health. These are important in whether we're talking about hormones or any aspect of health. These 6 foundational nutritional foundations have to be the priority for everything to work the way we need it to. So this applies across the board to anything health related. We're going to talk about power foods for our hormones and endocrine organs. We're going to talk about the impacts of poor digestion and a few ways that you can optimize that. And then we'll talk a little bit about beyond food. So how inflammation and toxins can create dysfunction and imbalance in our body. Okay, so starting with the 6 nutritional foundations, I know the wording's a little bit small on here, but I love this graphic, so I tried to fit it on. But these are the 6 foundations. So starting at the top, digestion and honestly, blood sugar regulation, those two are like the key areas that most of my clients have the biggest struggle with and where we often start. So with digestion, you are what you absorb. So if you're not digesting food properly and absorbing it, even if you're eating the best diet on the planet, you're not going to get the nutrients and you're not going to be able to utilize them. So we have to ensure that digestion's working well. And because of our world today, so many of us deal with digestive issues, even if we're not feeling symptoms. Blood sugar regulation, another big thing, again, just because of the diet that we eat these days, the chronic stress that we have in our life because of our lifestyles, all impacts our body's ability to regulate blood sugar. Too high, too low, and we don't feel great. And that has a cascade effect on all our other hormonal systems. Fatty acid balance, so making sure we're getting enough and variety of fats, and that we're also digesting and absorbing those. We're going to talk about that quite a bit today. At the bottom here is kind of like the base foundation, obviously eating real foods, sourcing them and preparing them properly so that they're coming with as much nutrition as possible and as few toxins as possible. And then mineral balance is very important, and we'll talk a little bit about that today, not as much as fatty acids, but minerals often get overlooked, and our food is very depleted of minerals these days. So we have to be very conscious about, getting in a variety of foods with different minerals, and of course, digesting and absorbing those. And sometimes we even need to take in extra minerals in supplement form. And then, of course, we can't forget about hydration. Our bodies are mostly water. So water is life, and we can't just drink any old water. We want to make sure that it's clean water, because water that, out of the faucet, if it's not filtered, usually comes with metals, germs, chemicals. So we want to make sure we're getting clean water. All right. So just to touch on how I view our body as a nutritional therapy practitioner, we've got our foundational systems and we have our consequence systems. We always focus on the foundational systems first. If someone is dealing with a thyroid issue or a cardiovascular issue, or maybe their immune system's going crazy, we may support that a little bit, but we don't start there. We always go back to the foundations. So our foundations are digestion. That includes our upper GI, our stomach, the first part of the small intestine, our liver and our gallbladder, our small intestine, our large intestine, and colon. And then blood sugar regulation is another key system. fatty acid balance, mineral balance, and hydration. So you can see these all are basically what we talked about on the slide before. And then the consequent systems are, if you notice the first four on here are endocrine hormone systems here. And then we've got cardiovascular, kidney, and immune. So when we're thinking about hormones today, we're always thinking about supporting the foundations first, because usually we have hormone issues or symptoms because something in the foundations is not working well. All right, let's get into the important nutrients for hormone health, because I know you guys are all probably wondering what you should be eating. So most women think of protein when we're asked what we need. And so we focus a lot on getting protein in, but we neglect two other very important nutrients that we need. So this is not to say protein's not important, because it is. But we also want to expand our thoughts around the other nutrients that we really need. So for hormones and endocrine organs, we actually need fats. And because really, since I can remember when I was a little girl, fats were very bad for us, and we were supposed to eat low fat diets and avoid all those fats. I think many of us women are kind of suffering from the consequences of not probably having enough fat in our diet for many years. Our hormones are made from cholesterol, comes from fat. So if we're not eating those foods, how can we build hormones? It's going to be very challenging to do so. So today I'm going to talk about fats, so we can all start getting excited about being able to eat more fat in our diet, because fat is yummy and it's really good for us. And it's also good for our brain too. So super important. And then of course, minerals, they're the spark plugs that make reactions happen in our body. They have other functions as well, but I think to simplify things, just thinking of them as like the spark plugs that make the reactions go and make the body function the way it's supposed to. All right, so let's get into the fats piece. So what fat should we be eating? So we want a variety of clean sourced fats. So I say clean sourced because fats can be, I don't know, I would say dirty. I'll use the word dirty. Fats can be dirty, they can be toxic, they can turn rancid. So we have to be very careful with our fats, because especially the monounsaturated and polyunsaturated, they're more delicate and they can become toxic to our body if we don't source and handle them properly. So saturated fats, the ones that we're all afraid of, right? Uh, they're actually very important. 50% or more of our cell walls are made up of saturated fats. We want to build strong cell walls and healthy cell walls, because our hormones have to get through to communicate, or they have to sit on the cell receptors to communicate. So if cell walls are not healthy, hormones aren't going to work so well. Then, of course, the monounsaturated fats and the polyunsaturated fats. I'm going to give you some examples of those in a second. But as I mentioned, clean sourcing, proper storage, and appropriate temperature is very important as we consume our fats. So in terms of eating a variety, we want to get a little bit of all of these kinds. So saturated fats, butter and ghee are a great option. Just source it organically or grass-fed, so that you're not getting all the added hormones and antibiotics that can come with kind of the conventional butters. Butter actually has vitamin A and butyrate, great for colon health, great for healing. So don't be afraid of the butter. You can get your fats from meats. So whether you're eating a grass-fed steak, or, I mean, you could even get it from eggs. The yolk of the egg is great. It has all the essential amino acids we need. Again, you just want to make sure that those meats are clean sourced, because again, you don't want to get the toxins or the like the antibiotics and things that those animals could be eating. Remember, you are not only what you eat, but what you eat eats. You're going to get whatever they eat. So make sure that you're getting clean sourced animal product. And then coconut and MCT oil are great sources of fats. What I love about coconut and MCT is it's those medium chain fats that are easier for your body to absorb and utilize for energy. Monounsaturated, we always hear so many great things about these, and for good reason. Olive oil, I put olive oil, it could be olives too. Some nuts and seeds fall in this category as well, but I like to focus on the olive oil, olives, and avocado. And then polyunsaturated, you've got two aspects to the polyunsaturated. You've got those omega-3s and the omega-6s. The omega-3s have different components to them. And the trickiest part is that you really can't get DHA from much other than seafood. So if you don't love seafood, we got to start figuring out ways for you to love seafood and how to cook it and how to eat it. And like I tell my kids, maybe you don't enjoy eating it, but just like you're swallowing a pill, just get it in there because it's got lots of great nutrition. Salmon is actually one of the top omega-3 containing seafoods. So you want to be getting some kinds of fish, or if you absolutely can't eat fish, maybe start with fish oils and you want to get a good quality. Most of the time, if you buy stuff off Amazon or even Whole Foods, it's probably not been sourced properly, stored properly, processed properly, and it may be rancid. So you just want to be careful that you're really getting a high quality one. Okay, and then you can get ALA and EPA of your omega-3s from flax, wheat germ, walnut, and hemp. And then omega-6, I put these down. Most of us don't struggle getting enough of those. We actually usually have to eat too many of these. And then the balance of omega-3s to omega-6s is off, and that can be inflammatory. So we could all do better to probably cut down on the omega-6s or at least increase our omega-3s. Temperature for our fats. Okay, so a lot of us cook with fats and oils. So we want to make sure that when we're cooking that we're using the oils that are going to maintain their structure and not become toxic or rancid. So if we're cooking at high heat, we want to use things like avocado, coconut, macadamia nut, butter, ghee, or animal fats. They're going to be the most stable because they're mostly saturated fat. So those saturated fats are very stable. If we're doing like medium or light cooking, sometimes if I roast things in the oven at lower temperatures, you can do something like an olive oil or walnut oil. Just make sure that it's naturally refined. And then the oils or fats that you want to keep cold or raw would be something like hemp, flax, olive oil if it's unrefined, fish oils. Those are all ones that you really want to avoid cooking with. Okay. Fats to avoid. So many of us know that we want to avoid trans fats and hydrogenated fats, but most of us don't think about the rancid vegetable oils. So these fats, the three that I bulleted here, they create inflammation in the body. They create unhealthy cell walls and hormones. And the structure of those are not such that it's going to allow for good cell and hormone function. And of course, inflammation in general, we don't want to have too much inflammation in our body. The inflammation itself can create damage to cells. So we know to read labels for trans fats and hydrogenated and partially hydrogenated oils, but talking about rancid vegetable oils. So that's it could be canola, it could be soy, it could be corn, but most of them are not properly stored. And if they get warm, even on a hot summer day in your house, sitting in a plastic clear bottle, those oils can start to go rancid. And actually what I found in my house was we have those lights under our cabinets And we have a switch, we can turn those lights on to light up the cabinet. And we had our oils sitting out there on the cabinet. And I realized those oils were actually getting hot sitting under those lights. So we had to well, actually, what I ended up doing was just turning that specific light off under the cabinet so that that area doesn't get hot. But you have to think about those things and buying oils that are in those darker colored bottles so that they don't, that will kind of keep some of the light and heat out. The other thing is a lot of fried foods or foods cooked at restaurants. I mean, think of like French fries and things that we all love to eat. Those are usually cooked in vegetable oils at really, really high heats. So it's kind of destroying the fat in the food and we're taking that toxin in. Now I'm a realist and I love fries, so I know it's going to happen. But if you can home make your fries when you can, that's a better option, and just reduce fried food as much as you can when you're eating out. All right, so we talked about how these inflame the cell walls, they change the cell wall structure. This makes it difficult for the hormones and our nutrients to actually get into the cells. And it makes it difficult for the hormones to sit on the cell receptors of the walls. So like some hormones will go into the receptors to communicate and some will actually go into the cell. The other thing that makes it challenging is then our hormones, they can't, if they did get in, maybe they can't get back out. They can't go back and communicate to the body. And then if the hormones can't get in, they can't communicate their message to the cell. And the problem with not being able to get things out is we can't get messages out of the cell, and we also can't get toxins out. So our cell actually creates a lot of toxins just functioning, and it has to have a way to get those out and, through the liver and eliminated from the body in order for us to feel well. And if kind of think of it as like if you were sitting in your house with all the doors and windows closed and you had a wood burning fire going and someone closed the vent at the top of it, all that smoke's going to come in and there's nowhere for it to go. And so you're just breathing those toxins in. That's what our cells are doing if we can't get those toxins out. So message here is we want to create the healthiest cell walls and hormones as possible so everything works well. All right. Minerals. Okay. Minerals to support hormones and our endocrine organs and hopefully help alleviate some symptoms. I put magnesium at the top. Most women are deficient in magnesium. It's very hard to get it in our foods these days. Not that we should not focus on magnesium-rich foods. This can help with depression, sleep, PMS symptoms, can help with leg cramping. It can help. I mean, magnesium, I feel like, is one of those miracle minerals. It can help with so many different things. For our thyroid, selenium and iodine are two really important minerals. And again, you'll see more seafood popping up on here. For you seafood lovers, I love seafood, but so you can get selenium from seafood, organ meats, and you can try Brazil nuts. And then iodine, sea veggies are actually a great source. So if you like sushi or like seaweed salad, which I love getting seaweed salad, though, it's a great place to get iodine. Seafood, and of course, iodized salt, although I always worry about having too much iodized salt, so that might be a use it a little bit kind of thing. And then for our pituitary, manganese is really important. And again, we're looking at shellfish, so seafood, but specifically shellfish, hazelnuts, pecans, brown rice, oatmeal, and legumes. And then for our adrenal system, selenium and copper are important. And then I put chromium and vanadium down because they actually support our blood sugar. And imbalanced blood sugar is one of the biggest things that stresses our adrenal system. And then gonads are ovaries and testes, selenium and zinc. Super important. All right. So I'm going to move on to gut health and hormones because this is a really big piece of the puzzle. Again, going back to the foundations. So digestion is important for hormone synthesis, creating hormones, for eliminating hormones, and then for regulating them. Um, so, as we said, it's not enough to eat healthy. We actually need to be able to fully digest and absorb the nutrients to benefit from them. So we want to make sure our digestive functioning is on point, our gut lining is very healthy, and ideally we don't have any microbes that are competing at high levels for our nutrients. We also want to make sure that we have healthy liver and a healthy gallbladder, and that bile is flowing well. The bile is what helps us digest fats. And of course, if we're not digesting those fats, we're not going to get those nutrients to build our hormones. And then bile is also important for clearing toxins and excess hormones. And then, of course, gut and microbiome imbalances can cause some issues as well. I'm going to go real quick. Okay. Yeah, I want to talk real quick about, actually, I'll move forward, and if I have time, I'll go back to that. Okay, so with gut health, just assessing symptoms alone isn't usually sufficient because there's so many different symptoms that can have multiple root causes. And so doing a symptom assessment can help, but we can oftentimes get a clearer picture of what's going on in your gut if we actually do a functional lab that looks at what's actually happening and going on and living there inside your gut. So my preferred test for that is the GI map. And a couple of things, this test is amazing. It looks at so many different things, but I just pulled out a couple of different things that kind of relate to our talk around hormones. So H. pylori is a bacteria that can reside in our stomach. And one of the things that H. pylori does is it will damage our parietal cells that produce hydrochloric acid, the acid that helps us break down our proteins and the food that we're eating. And when those get damaged, we can have lower stomach secretions. And so we won't be able to adequately digest the food we're eating. And it does this so it can make a nice little habitable home for it inside our gut. And then, of course, it can create damage to the gut lining. It can lead to things like gastritis and ulcers. And so, it's very important to identify if this is a problem so that we can address it and be able to ultimately improve digestive function. The other thing we can look at is steatocrit, which is basically a measure of, are we digesting our fat well? If the number comes back high, it probably means we need to support our liver, gallbladder, maybe some digestive enzymes, really working on some, food hygiene and, really supporting that fat digestion. Again, if we don't digest the fat, we aren't going to absorb it. We aren't going to be able to make all the hormones that we need. Another thing that we look at is beta glucuronidase. And so this is basically, and this is going to kind of cover into the microbiome piece as well, but it's an enzyme that's created by bacteria in our gut that can break apart the bonds of a conjugated hormone. So basically what this means is our hormones have to, especially if we have more than we need in our bloodstream, they have to go through our liver to get processed out. And the liver will basically bind it to different products, and those will shuttle the excess hormones out of the body. Beta glucuronidase, created by these microbes, will actually sever that. So then the hormone gets reabsorbed rather than eliminated back into the liver, can go back into the bloodstream, and so can really create high levels specifically of estrogen. And so many of us women at this stage in our life actually have a backed up, clogged liver. And so many of us are not processing things out well. And we may have high level, and if our microbiome's imbalanced, we may have high levels of beta glucuronidase. And so those hormones continue to circulate, kind of auto intoxicating ourselves rather than being eliminated. So I like to look at that and support that for my clients if that's something that pops up. And then, of course, microbiome imbalances. Um, with those, again, it can create the extra beta glucuronidase, but it can also um, change how well our body can absorb nutrients. Um, it can impede kind of the production of hormones. So there's a lot of things that the microbiome can kind of interfere with, especially if we have things that shouldn't be there, or an overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria. Okay, I know that slide was probably a little bit more in depth, but thought I would at least touch on those. Okay, so how can we support digestive health? I'm going to give you guys some basic things that you can do without knowing what's going on in your gut health, without doing a symptom assessment, without maybe working with a nutritionist. These are some things that you can consider doing. So digestive hygiene, want to make sure that you're in a relaxed state when you eat. Hopefully not eating at your desk during a work meeting, hopefully not eating in the car on the road somewhere. I know sometimes that's going to happen for us busy moms, but as often as we can just take a little break to be focused on food, the better. Even looking at your phone and reading something that makes you think about something that you should do, or an article that's stressful or upsetting, that's going to put your body into a stressful state. And when we're in that sympathetic, stressed state, our body does not digest. Our body digests when we're in the parasympathetic state. So when we're relaxed, when we're present with our food, when we're focused on eating, our brain can tell our body to release the chemicals it needs to start the churning process and shuttle resources to digestion. If we're dealing with an angry boss, or we're late for a meeting, or picking up our kids and we're trying to eat, our body is shuttling all the resources to tackling those stressful issues and not to digesting. So our food will just sit there. You can help yourself out by chewing your food 20 to 30 times each bite, not 5 like my husband does, but really, really chewing that food, especially carbohydrates, will pre-digest in our mouth. Our saliva has amylase, which will break down those carbs. And the more we can get our food into small bits and start the digestive process before it gets to our stomach, the more we help the rest of our digestive system out. All right, so digestive supports, there's a lot of great supplements that support this, and oftentimes people need that. But if you want to start with food, apple cider vinegar alone, or lemon water alone, or oftentimes I mix the two together, and I put it in warm water, can really help to break down the foods you're eating, and it stimulates your digestive system. So that can be something great, especially if you wake up in the morning, you don't feel hungry. Having a warm cup of ACV and lemon water can really get that digestion going. So maybe having a little bit of that before a meal. What I would say is if you do that and you feel better, it's usually a sign that you're low on hydrochloric acid and that you are probably needing support, or you need to investigate maybe what some of the root causes are for why you have low HCl. Other foods that are great, pineapple, papaya, you can eat that with your meal at the end of a meal, kind of as dessert. They have a lot of great enzymes in them that can help break down food. So that's always a nice add. And then in terms of supporting your gallbladder and bile flow, again, to aid the digestion of fats, We can have things like beets, bitter, any kind of bitter greens, dandelion root, radish. These are great things to kind of throw in to help support the liver and the gallbladder. And then, of course, microbiome support. You could add in a supplement that's a spore-based or soil-based probiotic or something broad spectrum. Again, you have to be really careful with these because a lot of times they don't always make it to where they need to make it in your digestive system. So that's why these spore and soil-based ones can sometimes work better. It's really about changing the terrain so that the microbiome can grow or balance the way that it needs to. And if you guys want a recommendation on any of those, I'm happy to give you guys a recommendation. And then fermented foods and foods with fiber help to feed the microbiome. Now, I will say that if you add in supports like these and you actually feel worse, more bloating, more gas, it can be an indication of an overgrowth of either beneficial or opportunistic bacteria. So just kind of pay attention to that and see how you feel when you use them. And then just to touch on liver detoxification, it's very key for us. Again, at this stage in life, we've been exposed to a lot of things, and hormones have to process through our liver and be eliminated that way. And a clogged up liver is going to cause a lot of issues. So one thing we can do is just reducing toxic load. So, alcohol can be very toxic. So just even starting there with reducing consumption. I know we love our wine and our margaritas. At least I do over here. Over the counter drugs. So, it can be anything, even just taking Tylenol. Anything from the environment, that could be in the air, could be in your house, it could be products that you're using. Gut pathogens, dysbiosis in the gut can create a lot of toxins. And then your immune system, especially if it's on overdrive, it creates a lot of waste and has to also kind of be processed through your body. We want to support bile flow to help the liver be able to remove the toxins. So we talked about some foods for that. Bowel movements are critical. So we want to be eliminating at least once a day, ideally 2 times, maybe more. If we get backed up, our bowel movements are like the biggest way that we eliminate toxins. The bile basically dumps into our digestive tract, and that kind of moves, the bile carries the toxins and it moves through with waste. So if we aren't going to the bathroom on a daily basis, those toxins get reabsorbed in the colon, and then we start self-intoxicating. So sometimes when I have clients who are not going, that's one of the first things we work on is how do we get you going more regularly so you're getting those toxins out of your body. We talked about the microbiome and beta-glucuronidase and just supporting that area. Oopsie, too fast. Binders as needed to remove toxins. So would not suggest going out and just starting to take a bunch of binders. You really want to work with someone who can help you do that in a way that you're not going to bind to your food or other things that you don't want to be eliminated. Liver support supplements can be really, really beneficial. Most of us can benefit from even doing a few months of a liver support. And then practices like getting to the sauna to sweat, exercise so you can sweat. Epsom salt baths can be great, and another way to get magnesium. Coffee enemas can help to get some of the toxins out that are kind of stuck and backed up in the liver and the gallbladder. All right, I'm gonna keep moving here. And then just some toxins to kind of be aware of that can clog our liver and our cells. So environmental toxins, whether it's from the air, the water, the land, you can think pesticides, you can think airplane fuel, car fuel. There's a lot of things that can, that get dumped in our water. Chemicals are everywhere, and we can't prevent everything we're exposed to. So that's why it's super important to make sure that we're supporting detoxification. Chemicals in our cleaning products and our personal care products. There is research, showing that it disrupts our hormones. Um, if those toxins sit on those cell receptors, then the hormones can't sit on those receptors and communicate. And if our cell walls are inflamed from toxins, hormones can't get in and toxins can't get out. Biotoxins like mold, algae, and Lyme, those can create a lot of havoc, especially for people who have the genetic susceptibility. We're also exposed to heavy metals. There's so many heavy metals. I just put mercury, lead, aluminum. Those sometimes can be the top ones. And then hidden infections, parasites, viruses, pathogens, yeast or fungus overgrowth. These can hide in our gut, our jaw, and pretty much anywhere in our body. And oftentimes it's just low-grade chronic inflammation, kind of driving our immune system kind of crazy, and we don't realize it's there. Okay. How do we know where to begin? Well, a full symptom assessment to determine areas that are dysfunctional or organs that need support or potential nutrient deficiencies is a great place to start. And that is the first thing I do when I start with my new clients is we do a full symptom assessment. It's optional to do lab testing, but lab testing can identify a lot of things that are causing issues. So I like to start with the gut GI map, looking for food sensitivities, because that can create inflammation and damage the gut. And then sometimes maybe doing a toxic panel if we want to look for like molds or heavy metals. But that is not always the first step, but can be something that we can do for people who are interested. So really the goal with that is identifying sources of stress and inflammation and trying to help remove or reduce them to basically stop stealing all the body's resources and creating inflammation and allowing the body to rebalance and heal. Small, consistent changes lead to big results long term. So you can simply start with some of the things we talked about today. All right, so we're all going to start eating our way back to health. I would love to chat with any of you further about your own health concerns and goals, where you want to go. I offer a complimentary discovery session. Just gives us a chance to talk more about you, what you're going through, what you'd like to change, how you'd like to improve, and then talk a little bit more about nutritional therapy and how working together can help you get you where you want to go. And for this group, I will even throw in a complimentary symptom assessment, which usually I don't do until I start working with the client, but it can be a way to just take a kind of a quick look at what might be going on for you and what a strategy could be in terms of where to start and focus. And then you can book that if you go to my website. It's literally on the homepage. You can just click the button to book.